Once upon a time, in a town nestled between rolling hills and a sparkling sea, there lived a man named Thomas. He was a cobbler by trade, a man whose nimble fingers had mended countless shoes, each stitch a testament to his skill and patience. But fate had dealt him a cruel hand, taking away his beloved wife, Mary, and leaving him in a world that seemed drained of color and warmth. Days turned into weeks, and Thomas found himself lost in a labyrinth of grief. The silence in his home echoed with memories, and the world outside appeared bleak and uninviting. One day, as he sat staring into the cold hearth, an idea sparked within him. It was a whim, a childish notion that seemed to materialize out of thin air. He wanted to make a pot, not just any pot, but one that would hold all the fragments of his shattered heart, each shard a piece of the love they had shared. He didn't know the first thing about pottery, but where there's a will, there's a way. So he set out on a journey to learn this new craft. His first attempts were, well, let's just say they resembled more abstract art than pottery, but Thomas was not deterred. With each failed attempt, he learned something new, each crack and flaw a step closer to his goal. And then one day, something remarkable happened. He created a pot, not perfect, but significant because it was his first. This humble creation became a vessel not just for holding physical objects, but also for containing his emotions. As he molded the clay, he poured in his sorrow, his anger, his love, and slowly, miraculously, those shards of his broken heart began to mend. In the quiet solitude of his workshop, surrounded by the remnants of his failures and the promise of his creations, Thomas discovered a new passion. Pottery was more than just a hobby for him. It was therapy, a dialogue between his troubled soul and the forgiving earth. Every curve and contour was a chance to remember Mary, not with pain, but with fondness. He saw her in the delicate patterns he etched, heard her laughter in the gentle thud of the clay on the wheel. As the months passed, his pottery improved, becoming a reflection of his healing heart. Each piece bore witness to his progress, the deep-rooted despair slowly giving way to a tentative hope. In the tactile feel of the clay, he found a solace that transcended the chill of his loneliness. And as he delved deeper into this new world, he realized that pottery wasn't just about creating objects, it was about creating connections. Connections to his past, to his wife's memory, and surprisingly, to a future he had almost given up on. It was during one of these pottery sessions that Thomas had an epiphany. He remembered the sparkle in Mary's eyes when she volunteered at the local soup kitchen, the compassion in her touch when she worked with underprivileged children. Suddenly, he had a vision. What if he used his newfound skill to make a difference? He could create pottery classes, not just for anyone, but for poor children who had no access to the arts. Fueled by this realization, Thomas transformed a part of his workshop into a makeshift pottery studio. He run family heirlooms, some with sentimental value and others that were nothing but clutter, to make room for a pottery wheel and an old wood-fired kiln that he found in an antique shop. Though rudimentary, the setup was perfect for what he had in mind. News of Thomas as free pottery classes for underprivileged children spread like wildfire through the grapevine of the small town. Soon, a steady stream of curious youngsters began appearing at his doorstep, their eyes wide with wonder as they stepped into his workshop. Their reasons for coming were as varied as their ages. Some had heard about it from friends. Others were coaxed by their parents, hoping their children would find an engaging activity. And still some had wandered in by chance, lured by the intrigue of the old cobbler's pottery. Thomas welcomed them all with a warm smile and an encouraging word. For him, every child who walked through his door was a new story waiting to be written, a fresh melody waiting to be played. And so his classes began, not with the precise techniques or rigid schedules of traditional workshops, but with the freedom of exploration. He laid out the basics, the feel of the clay, the function of the tools, the rhythm of the wheel, and then let their imaginations run wild. Some children took to pottery immediately, their tiny hands working with a dexterity that belied their years. Others struggled, their creations more abstract than artistic. And some just wanted to play, using the clay to make comical faces or bizarre shapes. Undeterred by their missteps, Thomas offered guidance and encouragement. He saw beyond the wonky pots and lopsided figures, recognizing the spark of creativity in each child. In turn, they saw in him not just a patient teacher, but a friend, a confidant to whom they could bring their muddy hands and flour-dusted dreams without fear of judgment. As the days went by, the children's enthusiasm grew. They came to his classes not just because they were free, but because they were fun, because they offered an escape from the drudgery of their everyday lives. For many, it was a world away from the cramped rooms and meager meals, a place where they could mold something beautiful from humble clay. And Thomas basked in their infectious joy. He saw in their eager faces a reflection of the passion he himself had rediscovered. Their presence filled his workshop with a chorus of laughter and chatter, chasing away the ghosts of silence that had haunted him for so long. Then came the day when Thomas's pottery saved him from more than just loneliness. One of the children, a girl named Lily, confided in him about her sick little brother. She spoke of her family's dire straits, how their meager income barely covered their rent and food, leaving little to spare for her brother's medicine. Touched by Lily's story, Thomas decided to use his newfound skills to help. He organized an exhibition of the children's work in a local art gallery, an event that drew in crowds of curious onlookers and generous donors. That day, the children stood proudly beside their creations, explaining to the adults the joy and therapeutic aspects of pottery. By the end of the event, they had raised enough money not just for Lily's brother's medicine, but for many other underprivileged children in the town. News of Thomas's initiative spread far and wide, transforming him from a simple cobbler into a beacon of hope and inspiration. People marveled at how he had taken his grief and channeled it into something beautiful, both in his pottery and in the lives he touched. His story was a testament to the healing power of art and the indomitable spirit of humanity. Years went by, and Thomas continued his pottery classes, watching with pride as his students blossomed, not just as artists, but as compassionate, confident individuals ready to face the world. He saw in them the embodiment of his own journey, the transformation of pain into purpose, of despair into hope. His initial goal of mending his broken heart had been achieved not through pottery, but through the very act of teaching and connecting with these children. In their innocent eyes, he saw the reflection of the joy and healing he had found. One evening, as the sun cast long shadows across his workshop, Thomas looked around at the children engrossed in their creations. He saw Lily, now a young woman, patiently teaching a group of younger students, and he knew that his work had come full circle. He had started this journey to heal his own wounds, and in doing so had become a healer of hearts. In the symphony of life where every note counts, Thomas had found his melody in the humble art of pottery. His story became a legend in the town, a tale whispered from generation to generation, reminding them that even in the darkest of times, hope can be molded like clay in the hands of a skilled potter. It was a reminder that life, like pottery, is all about balance, about finding the right mix of ingredients to create something beautiful and enduring. And Thomas, the old cobbler, had not just found his balance, he had become a master of his craft. A master of life, proving that one can rise from the ashes of grief and create a masterpiece of hope and healing.